All right, welcome everyone. So good to see you. Let me turn my video on so you can see me. Okay, it's wonderful to be here with all of you. My name is Megan, and I am one of the founders of Impact Launch and have been a practitioner of this work, Radical Transformational Leadership and the Leadership for Equity and Opportunity program for nearly probably a decade now, with Dr. Monica Sharma, whom you'll meet momentarily. And we're just so honored to be here with all of you and working on launching the 4th Marin Leadership for Equity and Opportunity cohort. What an incredible journey it's been. And I'm sure that you all are here because you've heard from someone who's done the program and wanted to learn more about it. So we're going to just, in this brief time that we have together, provide a lot of information. We're recording this session so that you can come back to the information if you need to. We'll also be sending the slides out, so you'll have everything in a concise email as well from us after this session. You'll be hearing from some of our alumni of the program, and then you'll also be hearing from Monica herself about the foundational principles of this work. So again, welcome and thanks for joining us. Hello to alumni and other friends of this program that are here as well. So I'm going to start with just some basic information about the program. I'm going to share a slide here so that we can go over some of the basics, and then we'll be able to dive a little deeper. Okay, so firstly, and we'll do the video in just a second, Ms. Shalene. So firstly, we just want to give a big shout out and thank you to the Marin Community Foundation, who years ago participated in this program, specifically Barbara Clifton-Zarate, and saw the opportunity and the possibility for what it could do if we brought it to Marin specifically. And she championed this work along with Jonathan and others within the organization to make it accessible and free to all Marin change makers. An incredible game-changing move that's still unprecedented in any other community. So thank you, Marin Community Foundation and the Buck Family Fund. We definitely share in your vision for what's possible in Marin and appreciate all the support you've provided for this program over the last 4 cohorts. So we're going to share a video, and I'll stop sharing my screen here so Micheline can share hers. And this is a number of Marin-based alumni sharing about the program and their experience. So we'll share this with you, and then I'll share a little bit more about the program itself. I'll hand it over to you, Micheline. I'm not hearing. Oh, there we go. Yeah, not hearing sound yet. And I can share.
Apologies, I'm going to just redo that here.
Sure. Working on equity together to create a common language, set of values, and tools for systems change so that individuals, organizations, and communities can create the results we truly want to see.
It's about unfolding the full potential of the people who participate, but not just within that workshop setting. It's set up to have breakthrough initiatives that participants take. And then it's about a results orientation. And the good news is that the work that we do here in Marin has application elsewhere too.
The narrative about Marin County is that it's wealthy. There's not a whole lot of needs here. But what we know is that there are thousands of people that are technically homeless. And so part of what we want to do is create the complete narrative around who Marin County is as it relates to these issues, and then develop the plan and the strategies for what is we're going to do about it. We're supporting this work because it is what we're all about, which is creating equity of opportunity for everybody here in the county of Marin.
The work of Community Action Marin is to provide pathways to self-sufficiency for low-income residents in Marin County. What drew me to the Leadership, Equity, and Opportunity training was an opportunity really not just for myself as an individual, but for my entire team. And I was motivated by a deep yearning as a new leader in the community to find ways to talk about the kinds of systemic shifts we wanted to make, and to provide an opportunity for us to have a shared language, to create a culture in the organization aligned around our mission to serve low-income people in our community, and to make a shift in collaboration with one another.
I'm working on equitable educational opportunities for Marin City youth from ages kindergarten to 8th grade. I joined Leo because I knew that as being a leader for Bridge the Gap College Prep, there are additional tools that I needed to effectively lead and manage teachers, as well as to be an effective support system for not only the youth, but their families and the community as well.
This is for people who want to make change. Change that's enduring, change that shifts the paradigm of us and them, change that's able to really unfold the greatest potential we have.
I want to be back to my community, the things that I'm learning about how to build collaboration or partnership and how to use simple but very meaningful, mindful actions that will definitely support us to achieve equity.
This workshop has really helped me see a broader picture of my role, just even as chief of police. It's given me, I think, the confidence and the permission to change things because it's the right thing to do, and to get the buy-in and people on board to be with me with the change.
The manifestation of what's to come is what I'm extremely excited about. And the fact that this is a scalable program. So we did it once, we can do it again. And every single time we're getting a cohort of folks that are all speaking the same language and that have desire to make their community better.
In a community that is highlighted for having great inequities, we're inspired by and committed to supporting the huge field of people working to change that narrative, to make Marin County a place where everyone can thrive. Wonderful. Thanks, Micheline. And a big thanks to everyone who's here who participated in that. So just to share a little bit further about the program, about 10 years ago, like I said, was sort of a burnt out activist. I was working on a lot of different issues in the community, but I wasn't seeing any results. I don't know if anyone here can relate, but I was wondering how we could actually walk our talk and generate the results that we were committed to and passionate about, but not making any real progress, not any sustainable and equitable progress on. And I was introduced to Dr. Monica Sharma, whom we'll meet, and her work and her framework, and it has changed my life and my work ever since. It has been the single most meaningful program that I took and work that I've been involved in the last decade. And Leo was created and is a sort of a vehicle for radical transformational leadership in the Bay Area. We created that program about 7 years ago, and we have well over 1,000 alumni now across the Bay Area. And Leo is based on Monica Sharma's work, Radical Transformational Leadership. We are offering this program in English and in Spanish with simultaneous interpretation. We are working on translating the book as well. It's not yet in Spanish, but it will be. All of our materials are in Spanish, and we're deeply committed to growing our accessibility for this work. And there hasn't been a more critical time for that, for our communities to try a new way of generating change, of building our capacity for courageous action, courageous decision-making, for navigating challenging dynamics, for overcoming and transcending polarized conversations, and for recognizing not only what's working about what we're doing, but where there's gaps, what's missing, and how we can close those gaps, what we can put in place to generate the true, measurable, visible changes in people's lives that we are all committed to. And I trust that everyone here is committed to that since you're here and you're interested in this program. So I've applied this work to dozens of projects over my career and my life, from administratively to being an executive director of a 9-county organization to address poverty. I've worked on youth violence prevention using these tools. I've worked on childhood obesity. I've worked on criminal justice reform. And so this work is, we call it subject agnostic. It can be applied to any field, any issue, anywhere. And so just a few pieces around logistics. I have found that the more intention and practice and exploration that I allow myself in this program, that I gift myself that time, the more I gain from it, and the more that it helps advance our initiatives and my own personal leadership journey. And so this program is comprised of 4 sessions. This time it will be virtual again, online, over the course of several months. And participation in all of those sessions is required. Each day, each minute builds on the previous. And so to fully be able to try these tools on, it really requires each being present and being fully present for each of those days. The program is also designed to be a learning and action program, meaning that we ask that everyone come in with a project, not a big global scale project, although that's great too. And we invite that, but it can be related to your day job, related to where you're, just start where you're already standing. What is something that every day you do that you want to help transform and generate results through? And we're here to talk through what that project could look like, to provide additional examples. We are always available to help think that through. So please don't let that dissuade you from joining the program. We are definitely well-versed in helping people think through and identify a great project to work on. And again, we're offering the program virtually. We've been designing it over the last couple of years and are now pretty well experienced in being Zoom friendly with our format and schedule. And I'll share a bit more of logistics at the end of this information session as well. And we'll take your questions at the end as well. So for now, let me see, I want to share a couple of slides so that you can have a visual, and then we'll jump into a couple of alumni sharing and then meet Monica. So who is this program for? So often leadership programs are focused on one specific level of leadership or role in an organization, et cetera. And that's one thing that makes this program incredibly unique and powerful, is that it's designed specifically knowing that we all have the capacity to generate change, no matter who we are or where we are, no matter our formal role. We all have influence, if not authority, to generate change. And if we care deeply and have access to tools and practices that can help us generate that, we're unstoppable. So this program's for emerging leaders, it's for community activists, it's for young leaders, it's for experienced leaders, C-suite, line staff, on the ground staff. Doesn't matter what your role or level in the organization, this program has something for you. Elders, anyone who cares deeply about equity and justice and is willing to work to make a difference. And as I mentioned, these are the dates. These are also on our website at impactlaunch.org/MarinLeo. And this is all available in Spanish on the website as well. And so lastly, before I turn it over to our alumni, a few points about what we learn in the program. Again, this framework, we'll hear more from Dr. Monica Sharma and how she created it. But it's based on her work in radical transformational leadership across the globe, across cultures. We'll learn about values-based leadership and really how to actualize our values in action, how to have our values be embedded into the design of our work so that our results reflect those values as well. We'll learn practical tools for generating equity We'll learn about measuring what matters through our project and finding leverage points for change. We'll be generating a shared language that will help us talk about systemic change in a more specific way with our partners. Project-based learning, again, this isn't about leaving with a bunch of notes that look good. We'll be leaving with action that we can take in actual projects so that we learn through acting, we learn through doing. And then again, steps to scale our social transformation, steps to reach those results that we all care so much about and are committed to producing. So I'm going to invite now, so you can hear from a couple of additional of us who have done this work and really rolled up our sleeves and put this work into action and seen results. And so first, let me see. First, I'm going to ask Heather Bettini with Community Action Marin to share with us a few of her thoughts and experiences about participating in this program. So I'll hand it over to you, Heather.
Thank you, Megan, and welcome to everyone. Nice to see you all here. Some familiar faces and new faces. My name is Heather, and I stand for oneness and inner greatness for myself and all beings. And you'll get some practice with your stand, identifying the universal values that you connect with most deeply through this program, which is a gift, I can tell you. I use it all the time, and I don't necessarily introduce myself or say those exact words, but the essence, the energy of that comes through all of my work, even in my personal and family relationships. So I was thinking about what I could share besides kind of just that energy and that really, just being connected with your operating from a different space and seeing what is possible, moving from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. And I wanted to use one of the tools and kind of talk a little bit about a project I'm working on and how I've seen results change and shift. So I work with Community Action Marin, and in my role, I address the root causes and consequences of poverty in Marin County. And I'm going to talk about and just really walk through examples of a tool called synergistic operational strategies. And there are kind of 4 components to this tool, and they can be used for every project, every initiative that you ever work on. And they're really critical pillars for how to make the work actually make the shift that you care deeply about, what Megan was sharing. Because we come to this work and there's so much to do, and sometimes we don't see the results that we really care about. So this is one tool. So the first part of it is to develop transformational leadership for results. So it's not just about connecting with my inner greatness as a leader, but it's opening spaces for other people to do the same, to see their full potential and operate in that space. How wonderful when we're all feeling full and capable and seen and heard and respected and dignified so that we can do that. And how much more powerful can we be, as a community. So, this is about really opening that space, developing the team's inner capacity. So we have a staff event coming up, and we're going to embed this activity around identifying one's personal values, because not all 200 people from our agency can attend this next cohort. Unfortunately, we wish we could flood it and have everybody there. So we'll be talking about, somebody that they admire, and really think about a person, a real person in their life, and what qualities are present, and then think about how that relates to them, because we see in others what is present in ourselves. And so we'll open up a space for people to really think about that. Everyone is a leader on the team. That's another kind of shift, where it's not just a top-down hierarchical leadership scale, if you will, but everybody has the potential to create change at all levels. And so that's one piece of it. Then using relevant information for decision making. So, the underlying factors of poverty are often understood as an individual problem. I did something wrong, so therefore I have these consequences, if you will. But really, we know that the systems that we all live with are designed to produce the exact results that we see. And there are structures in place that create barriers for some and supports for others, and it's not equitable. So we disaggregate metrics by race and gender and other characteristics to see how people are accessing services and disparities in results. And we make shifts. We think about, well, it's not working for X group. For example, what do we need to do differently? It's a different strategy. We may have the same service, but connecting with this group of people where we see they're not able to make as much progress, we have to think about that differently and do something differently and have the courage, not just do business as usual. There needs to be a shift. The third component is fostering an enabling environment for change. We need new anti-racist policies. This is just one example that move beyond NIMBYism and to, yes, in my backyard, we all deserve a place to live, whether we have a lot of money or not a lot of money, and we're human beings. So starting conversations with, so what becomes possible when we're all looking at this problem from that lens, shifting the narrative through storytelling and lifting up the voices of those we serve, centering them. And then finally, the last part is supporting change makers and risk takers. This is so critical because if we're not willing to shake things up, we're not going to see the shift. Going around the edges is not going to really get at the heart of these, the root causes of poverty, for example, such a huge challenge. So we need to find those champions to partner with who are willing, to engage and are working for the dignity of all. So one quick example how that looks, we're developing career pipelines for homeless women in Marin County to be able to secure housing, stability, fulfillment, employment. We need to work with employers who are willing to, and it's not just willing, who will be lucky to have these women as part of their workforce. So, thinking about how we work with the employers, you're not doing us a favor. You're actually getting a talented employee who's resilient and adaptive and is strong and has overcome obstacles in their own lives. So how to frame that and really build partnerships across sectors differently. So I think I've probably taken all of the time, but those are just some concrete examples of how I've applied the tools in my work. And it truly is transformational. I think I've participated 4 times at least in Leo. So I will be a practitioner coach and, am on this lifelong journey to continue to learn and grow and deepen this work for myself and for all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Heather. Thanks for joining us and sharing and being on this journey with us. All right, so next I'm going to invite Eduardo to share from Edmo. Thanks, Eduardo.
Thanks, Megan, and hi, folks. My name is Eduardo, and I stand for equity, authenticity, and courage for myself and all others. And I'm kind of preparing for this. I was thinking about what even drew me to Leo in the first place. And in our journey, I had this sense at Edmo that, and Edmo is, we do after school and summer programs for kids and all around STEAM and social emotional learning. And we'd been using the word equity for years. And I had this feeling like, I feel like we're misusing this word. I don't fully understand how this word, and I'm curious about it. And I'm curious about, like, A, what does it mean? And 2, how can I really truly be a champion for equity in the community through my work? And so as I was thinking about these things, I actually ran into Don, who I saw here on the call. And he told me about Leo and how it was this transformational thing. He couldn't really explain it. He just like, you just got to experience it. And you will do things differently after you go through this process. So I was like, okay, I don't even need to know much more than that. Like, I know whatever I'm doing isn't creating results in the way that I want to. So let me try this out. And sure enough, I mean, we did the first cohort and the 3-month process. And in that process, and I joined with 3 other members of my executive team. And the conversations that started to come up, we were talking in a different way about our organization and looking at internally, like where inequity lies in our systems and in our everyday roles. Like, there's so much inequity that was just kind of been woven into our fabric that we're not even aware of it. So one of the first tangible results of the work was when the pandemic hit. We knew that our financial aid system, the way we had it structured, was inequitable. We had families who were having to fill out all these forms and had to get teacher recommendations and all these things to get financial aid for the program. And we said, this is inequitable, right? We have some families who pay and get in immediately and others who have to wait weeks or months, and we can't do that during this pandemic. How can we create a new system based on our values that we stand for that creates immediate access for everyone? So we ended up coming up with this honor-based financial aid system, and it was transformational. It changed the power dynamic from Edmo giving scholarships or financial aid to families to families choosing whether they wanted to pay the full amount and help others who couldn't afford it, and those who needed the help could just enter in a code and do it and get in immediately. And it was an incredible experience. But I think just again, knowing our values, having the tools to have integrity around those values is what we got out of Leo. And I will say, and even now, I mean, and this will be I've gone through it 3 times now, and there's like 40 something tools. There's a lot. It's very overwhelming the first year I found. But as I practice over the years, there's like every time I'm around, I'm like, oh, with that one, I can use this one tomorrow. And it's just been like every single time I've done this, and each one of the sessions is, it's like 2 or 3 days for 3 months in a row or 4 months in a row. And every single time I have a tool that I walk out that I can literally apply the next day that changes a conversation, changes the way I lead a meeting with a potential school district partner or an internal meeting with my staff. There's just all these little nuances and just little subtle shifts on the way how you frame something or how you introduce something or how you lead a discussion that really changes the trajectory completely different to what you would have done if you were just doing business as usual. I feel like that's my 3 minutes.
Thanks so much, Eduardo. Appreciate it. All right. And last but not least, I want to welcome Shelley from Marin Promise Partnership to share a few thoughts.
Hi, everyone. It's really good to see some familiar faces and a lot of new faces. So working with Marin Promise Partnership, I'm Director of Research and Communication and had led the College Enrollment Action Team for a while with the partnership. So as a partnership of over 100 organizations, many of you are part of the partnership and watching the video, just seeing the involvement. One of the things that has been just, I think, transformational in our community in Marin County, and I'm so appreciative to Impact Launch and Monica and the Marin Community Foundation, is to have this critical mass of people in partnership and working together and sharing that common language. And I've really seen how it has made a difference in a lot of the partnership meetings, to know that there's that common foundation of values-based work that we're all doing together on equity, and that there are tools that as a backbone support person, we help set the agendas for the meetings and facilitate the meetings, and just knowing that we can have the courage to maybe push the envelope a little bit on the way that those meetings are structured, because there are a lot of people already in the room who have that shared experience with a lot of the tools and a lot of the language that's used. So some of the examples of that are starting meetings with values-based check-ins. So rather than starting a meeting with, say, who you are and what organization you're with and your title and blah, 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 most of the meetings, almost all of the meetings now start with some type of values-based check-in and introduction. Lots of times I was noticing Heather saying, I don't always say it that way. And so sometimes we just say, what is one value that is resonating with you right now in your life that is bringing you and showing up in this meeting? So for people who haven't, which I forgot to do, my name is Shelley. My name is Shelley Hamilton, and I stand for integrity, courage, compassion, and justice for myself and all others. Remind myself of that. So that's one way that it shows up across the board. We also use a lot of the tools. I'd say the couple of the concepts that we use very frequently is the concept of shifts. So rather than talking just about change in general, the specificity of using that shift framework of from to really helps move the conversation. And again, the idea of transformation from a values-based perspective rather than just incremental change, I think also really changes the dynamic of the conversations and the work that the partnership and the organizations and the action teams in the partnership in the way that we work together. The couple of the other concepts that we have used in the past are the commitment behind the complaint. So one of the things that we look for and do a factor analysis, I think Heather talked a lot about that as well, the factor analysis of kind of digging below the surface around why are inequities held in place? What are the factors in play that are the barriers? And when we talk about those barriers, or we hear people bring up those barriers, looking for the commitment behind those complaints around those barriers to get to how might this change? And then the breakdown to breakthrough, the idea that when things break down, it's a moment to break through. So those are just some of the concepts that you'll learn more about in this training. And there are a lot more. And the specificity of the tools that, yes, you can walk out, pull them out and use them the next day are just incredibly, incredibly helpful. So really appreciate the commitment to making this a county-wide effort. I think that transformation in our county is huge.
Thanks so much, Shelley. Thanks. All right. Thank you to all of our alumni who are here and those of you who shared. So much appreciation for being on this journey with us. So with no further ado, I want to introduce Monica Sharma, the founder of this work, the reason we're all here. She's a force of nature. And we've been in deep relationship around this work for, like I said, a decade. So a lot of love and respect for you, Monica. And so just to provide a brief introduction, Monica is trained as a physician and epidemiologist and has worked with the United Nations for well over 2 decades and continues to work in some ways with the UN. And she was the director of leadership and capacity development, and she created this framework recognizing globally that the major issues that we are facing, and in that context at that time, public health crises, HIV, AIDS, human trafficking, et cetera, were not just an issue that could be changed through policy or through traditional status quo actions, but they were actually a leadership crisis, and that we needed a new way of operating, of acting, of working together, of relating to the issues that we are trying to change to generate equity and sustainable change. So out of those very complex social issues and social situations, she generated an incredibly sophisticated yet simple to access framework for all of us to create social change through. She's worked with universities, management institutions, government, business, media, civil society organizations across the globe. She's been published and presented in over 250 articles and journals. And again, is the author of Radical Transformational Leadership, really the handbook for this work, and something that we'll use throughout this cohort if you choose to join us. So without further ado, I will hand it over to you, Monica, to share more about the foundation of this program. Thanks so much for, when you could be anywhere in the globe, choosing to support and be here and see the potential and possibility in Marin.
Thank you, Megan. What you see in me is who you are, right? So you're like that force of nature. And so is Eduardo, and so is Heather, and so is Shelley. So this work is about each of us, manifesting our greatness. So let me thread what each of you have said, because you've said it all. But let me say it a tad differently. So there is a lot of conversation out there these days about the theory of change. And this work is about the theory and practice of change. And what the theory of change means is to have logic imbued in our work. What we do is we go beyond logic to mobilize ourselves for what we care deeply about. So my name is Monica. I care deeply about equity, dignity, and freedom as mukti. For myself and others, freedom as liberation, not freedom to hate. So for me, that's what this work is about. And when you succeed, I mean, what happens locally is what's global today. So for me, Marin County is an icon of what we would like to see, I would like to see as an example, because today we can communicate what you do, how you do it, how philanthropy can be a space for generating the best in people. So for me, that's the first thing about Marin. The second piece is that, you know, we use inquiry. That means everyone asks themselves. We generate our own aha moment, insight. And then from that new insight, we are willing to break habitual patterns. It's not that we are bad. It's not that we are good. It's just that we are creatures of habit. And so how do I transform my meetings? How do I converse with people differently? So this is about practice based on what we call universal values. And why do we use the word universal? It means universal for us means not that we are imposing it on anyone. It just means it is something I apply as Monica, equity, to everybody, not just the groups I work with, not just the country I was born in, not just my nationality or the faith I anchor myself in. So when we say equity, we mean equity for everybody. Whether I like that nation or have something or whatever, it doesn't matter. So it's suddenly that framing itself, it's not a framing, it's actually an unfolding of self. That makes you and me a local global citizen. I work in my community with the same way as I will work with policy, which is the same way I will work as a global citizen. I learn to transcend polarity. So a couple of examples. You know, what's been very interesting for me, and I'll basically focus on the US. What's been interesting for me is how business has applied this, how the National Park Services that work for climate action and conservation has applied this, how Megan, her colleagues, how you have applied it in the Bay Area in issues of homelessness, issues that have been related to actually, I should go back and actually marginalizing people who stand for something. So the word activism has been hijacked. It's been hijacked to do whatever we want in radical transformational leadership. Activism is about being able to stand in my values and hold everyone differently. So a lot has been said about language, which is the next point. And it's not only the power of common language, which, a lot of people, leadership gurus will say, a society is nothing but a network of conversations. The conversation you have establishes the social narratives that exclude or include. So it's the ability to use language simply, but be able to actually anchor it in universal values, to distinguish what they say, hot air and opinions from conversations that are based, multiple perspectives that are based without compromising values. So for me, it's not that the world isn't full of narratives and conversations and communication. It's just that one opinion against another. And just yesterday, just to illustrate what you said on language, it's not just the fact that there are people in Marin County who use similar language and know what you mean. What it is that, Shelley, you used that word, you said value-based language. So it's the ability to not react to the thousands of opinions and judgments that are placed on us. Because, now no matter what you do and what you say, somebody is going to call you some name. It doesn't matter which side. So to me, how do I learn to distinguish conversations and encourage the ones where I use language rigorously? And my sense is it works because actually everyone has in some way touched those 42 tools somewhere. We've done it implicitly and we've done it sporadically in our lives. So when we bring that forth, you've actually lived that. But now what you'll do, and I do, is to make it explicit, communicate it, and make it systematic, not sporadic. So instead of the scatter of ideas, you're building the ecosystem for equitable, sustainable change. So when scientists in National Park Services just saw themselves as top-class 3 PhD type analysts and could not connect the power of their work to their own greatness, it was explosive in a beautiful way. And then they integrated these tools with young people who were interns and young people and not so young people like me by age in their citizen science programs. And till today, those programs continue without anybody pushing it. Why? Because that one piece, which is my greatness and yours, what you stand for, the essence of your life, does not have a degree, does not have a color, it's not race oriented, it's not gender oriented, it's not class oriented, it's the humanity of our greatness. And when I touch that space, I'm unstoppable. And when you touch that space, you're unstoppable. But this we know, that I can stand, like Margaret Mead says, you know, have no doubt that it's an individual that will stand up and make a difference. But you and I know that we need to stand and hold hands with others, create the space. So how do I have the courage to stand up alone? Like Megan did when she challenged people in, you know, there was hate mail against someone who was getting everyone homes. And what you did, Megan, how you supported that risk taker. I shouldn't take names, I can. But, you know, when everybody had hate mail, had personal mail on social media to diminish her work, you stood up and you not just challenged them, you were able to look at the commitment for action behind their complaint and say, isn't safety what we all want? Isn't that behind your thoughts? And my last point, polarization and our opinions. So you and I are currently living in very intense, polarized times. And we do not actually look at the underlying forces that we've been pretty quiet about. We, as in the royal we of everybody, I don't mean individuals here. For example, when Coca-Cola, that creates obesity, said it's about happiness, we didn't object really. We just said it was a marketing gimmick. But guess what young people then think? So we've allowed ourselves to normalize violence through our games that the kids play, the movies, the superheroes that always, like James Bond, in bed with a new woman every day, and then, you know, snazzy car and a pistol in his hand kind of thing. And then we've cultivated that, and suddenly killing has become, never mind, let's not get there. So you and I are creating the counterculture, right? That's what you're doing. You're creating the counterculture. So today, when there's war in one country, there was a war in Vietnam, for example, our response to that must be, you know, caring for people. But our response to that must also be, why do we make war profitable? So I'm going to be working with somebody where we are going to do enough research to make peace profitable. Why is war profitable? So to me, that it's vital that we are able to look at the underlying forces differently, and that we don't just gloss over it. So whether it's the weapons and the militarization, whether it's the fact that 4 major companies of the US own 50% of the world's seeds, that poverty is a structural defect, it's not an underlying cause. When will research and academics transform the metrics and look at the metrics for systems change? And so for me, it's wonderful, the points you brought up, Shelley, what you said, Eduardo. How does equity become something I do something about, not just keep analyzing, not just keep pointing fingers, but I do something? Or like what Heather said, how do I learn to put the tools together? And so I think what you're going to be doing locally to address power dynamics that are fragmenting our Mother Earth and her resources for us, how we can not only work on anti-racism, but on the full potential of everybody, irrespective of race, because it's both and we learn those tools. I think that truly, Marin, so please enroll people. This is not a go it alone space. Please, if you found it useful, go ahead and enroll others, because this greatness exists. And you know, out of 100 people, we are at different stages of our journey, and enroll them into manifesting what they really want to do for Marin and then for the world. Because, you know, scale is not having a large project. Scale is the strategic thinking of a template that you can take to scale. And that's what the conscious full spectrum response model is. That's the foundation of scale. So guess what? It's sophisticated simplicity that everyone can participate in. And therefore, your work is global and it's at scale. So thank you, Megan. Thank you. And thank you, Eduardo, Heather, Shelley, and all of you who've you know, made a difference in your own way.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you again for being with us and
of course
seeing the potential in Marin and beyond. Okay, so we want to invite folks' questions in our last few minutes here. You can put them in chat, or you could use the raise hand feature, and maybe Micheline can help me keep an eye on that. While we're waiting for some questions to come in, I'm just going to start with a few that are common that might be in the back of your head. So one question that comes up is, what if I don't have a project? What if I'm not at a global scale, or my project doesn't sound as big as these projects that have been talked about today? Reduce those background conversations, all that noise. We promise that there is a powerful project that you are already working on and that we can help distinguish and really focus in on. So it doesn't matter. Start where you're standing and reach out to us if you're not sure what project you want to work on. We will help you identify that. And the project is not about, it doesn't have to be sort of this game-changing, ending hunger or big issues. It can be, but the project is about our learning at first. It's about a vehicle for our learning. It's something that we can apply these tools to in real time, so that we are learning and embodying this work and seeing how it actually works, as Eduardo said, and Shelley and Heather bringing these tools out immediately the next day to see how they work. That's what this is all about, is not learning about it in the workshop, but actually going and then practicing and trying it on. So we can help with the project piece. Don't be dissuaded by that. And this is about individual projects. You can come as a team, but we still ask that each of you apply individually so that you're reflecting with your own insights and your own unique contributions as to how you're going to contribute to that project. another question that we get often is, do I have to participate in all the sessions? And I spoke to that earlier. Yes, the tools build on each other. And it's incredibly important that you're able to commit to each session of the learning. And let me just check back in and see, are there other questions?
You
that
know,
have
Megan,
come up?
that
Yeah.
point you raised about
Yeah.
project
Yeah.
is confusing because we write the word project.
Mhm.
There is no action, whether that's at home,
Yeah.
in our workplace, or in society, that's big or small. That is yesterday's conversation. That's history. What the question is it based on universal values? Is it changing a pattern in the home or in society? And it's not about big or small, it's about strategic. And once I'm strategic, I'm part of a global movement, even if I don't know who else is doing it this way.
Yeah.
You know?
Thank
So
you
I
for
think that was a very important point, Megan.
Yeah, and thanks for that further focus on it's not about the size or the scale of the project, big or small, it's about how strategic is it.
And if we
that's what
have
we
time,
work
I'll
on.
give you about 10 examples, but we won't. We'll do that later.
Coming soon. Yeah,
Coming.
thank you. I see a few other questions. I'll keep you on here, Monica. A few other questions in chat. So I understand this year will be virtual. Do you think this will continue into the future? We don't know. We know that a lot of people are able to access the program because it's online that wouldn't normally be able to drive and take the extra time. And we know that some people want it to be in person. So we'll be looking at hybrid options and other
Yes.
options moving forward, but this year it will be virtual. And how much does the program cost? If you're in Marin or have a project in Marin, it's free. Marin Community Foundation is making it free to make it fully accessible to everyone in Marin. It's a huge contribution. So if you are working, living in Marin, or have a project that works in Marin in some way, it's free to you. A question, I'm not from Marin County, can I still apply? If you have work that is being done in Marin, yes. And you can still apply. We keep a handful of slots open for those that are not from Marin, and we can talk more about what that might look like. So please reach out and we can talk about your individual circumstances more directly. Any other questions from folks about the program logistics, content, etc.? Okay. So I'm going to just share logistics slide one more time. Oh, Don says, my experience with Leo is that this requires your full commitment and presence in all the
Yes.
sessions, the breakouts,
Yes.
the homework, right? Yeah, this is really about diving in, trying it on for those 3 or 4 months together and practicing. And being
See,
fully
Megan,
present.
it's not an intellectual course, you see.
Right.
It's like what Eduardo said. How do you explain it? I mean, it's like reading a menu card and imagining you're tasting the meal,
Mm-hmm.
or reading a book on making love and imagine you're making love, right? It requires that kind of, full attention, what Don is saying, because it is about you. It's about the participant. It's not about, it's about my unfolding.
And it's always about practice. We always talk about that. On that note, Nancy asked, is there a great deal of time that's involved outside of the course meetings? So that's all outlined on the website, but just really briefly, there is a once a week call with 2 other cohort mates that we call pods, and those are to help further the learning in between and support each other and notice our own growth and in our practice of the tools. And so that really keeps the material and the work alive between sessions so that we're practicing and have a space to land in and be accountable to that practice. So
Megan, I'd like to add one thing there.
Sure.
See, this is based on peer learning, the insights that everybody generates. We say we want to listen to people, but how do we listen to each other deeply? How do we learn from our peers? If we are not going to learn from our peers now, how are we going to learn from community members later? So it's the intercession is not only about, and it's not about what I could not do. It's not a monitoring place. It's a place where I learn to share and where my peers notice my growth, it's very hard for us to notice our own growth in an authentic way. So it's set up for action peer learning.
Mhm. Yes, and as Dawn said in the chat, it's experiential, learning by doing, applying, collaborating, listening deeply, as Monica said. Shelley said, one other way to think about a project is to frame it as a shift you're involved in implementing in your
Yes.
work or volunteer life in Marin. Yeah, so thanks for all these nuggets of wisdom from our alumni in chat as well. I know we're at time. I just want to provide a few final logistics, and then please feel free to reach out. I'm going to put our contact information up on the screen, and we are available. So Micheline, just maybe wave, Micheline is our incredible support on our support team for this program, and is behind the scenes with us, but and just invaluable to this program. And so you can contact myself if you've got project questions, want to talk that through. If you've got program content questions, want to know more about anything we talked about, please feel free to reach out. If you've got application or logistics questions, things like that, you can reach out to Micheline, but either of us are fine and we'll get you the answer one way or another. And the website's there, impactlaunch.org/MarinLeo. The application deadline is October 12th. All the materials and application content is available in Spanish on the website as well. You'll see that there. Just a word about registering for the program. It is an application process. It's not that we're selective, but if we have questions about the project not being fully outlined, or if it's a very brief application, we may reach out to you for more information to make sure it's the right fit. And that application also helps Monica and the team really tailor the program and the content to who's in the room and what your projects are focused on. So it's a really important piece of information for us. And we will fill the cohort at about 100 people. So so earlier applications is best. It's a rolling application process, but the deadline is October 12th officially. All right. So we will send this slide deck out, and that will have all of this information on it as well. Again, please feel free to reach out. I know this is a lot of information all at once, and we want to make sure that we get your individual answers to any additional questions that you might have. And I just want to finally thank Monica again for joining us, Stella and Micheline for supporting and providing interpretation. To our alumni, Heather, Shelley, and Eduardo for sharing. Will the recording of this be made available? Yes, we'll have this on the website and we'll send the link out as well. So if anyone wasn't able to attend today, they'll be able to watch this afterwards. We'll also be having this transcribed so that there's Spanish subtitles added to the recording video as well. All right. I know some folks might have to jump off. Any last thoughts, questions? Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you again, everyone, for joining us. We hope to see you on this journey. We launch in October, and so we've got a few months to answer any questions you may have, and we hope to hear from you soon. Thank you again, everyone.
Aloha and mahalo.